Hello and welcome to Tribulation Day 197. And unfortunately, the world continues to spiral downwards into chaos. And for me personally this morning, the tribulation was front and center as I took my morning dog walk. Basically, the tribulation smacked me in the face, so I'll get to that in a minute. But you know, globally, I think we're in for a big week of tribulation. I think the extreme weather around the globe, just stay tuned. Chances of volcanoes and earthquakes this week are very high. The sun is having all sorts of crazy activity and blowing off solar flares and CMEs all over the place. And there's going to be a solar alignment of the Earth, Mercury, and the Sun, and whatever the remnants of Comet Elenin there are. But the potential for like a 6.5 or greater earthquake is really there. So the other thing is we have a storm coming into Southern California that they've technically named Faith. That's supposed to be coming in the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time frame, but down in Southern California, in the LA, it's a rare combination of the Santa Ana winds and the Pacific moisture colliding and creating like these super storms with some hail and crazy winds and thunder and snow and whatever. So flooding, landslides, we'll have to check it out. But it's kind of ironic that they called the storm Faith. And I've kind of put that into my tribulation blog. If you go to the tribulation blog, it's kind of like, is people's faith being tested, or is faith testing people? And I think it's actually both. Around the world, there's just crazy weather, extreme weather everywhere, and of course the economic collapse kind of keeps chugging along. The euro is collapsing, and the United States is probably not too far behind it. So everybody's still struggling with what that means. And of course, Black Friday, we as Americans went out and spent more money on buying things, whatever the hell that is, than we've ever spent before. Fantastic, congratulations, whoopee. But does that mean everything, happy times are here and everything's the tribulation's gone? Don't think so. So, that kind of swings us back to, of course, politically, the unrest is everywhere, all across the Middle East, Europe, in the United States. Occupy Wall Street still kind of going bonkers. But that brings us back to, my personal tribulation this morning. In the last video blog, I kind of put the title in there, The Precipice, that, society and events are all going to where it's all ready to fall off a cliff. Well, today what I want to focus on is that we as humans, just as people, me speaking, but we're all reaching, what I would call the breaking point, and it's because we're all clinging on to life and reality as we know it by our fingernails, just barely hanging in there because we're barely paying the bills and people are getting laid off, and the numbers just aren't adding up, and we don't see any change or hope coming. Our government's gridlocked, so personally, the tribulation is affecting all of us, and because of that, we're all reaching our breaking points. And basically what you find is people are wigging out because they've got stress levels are really high, they're worrying, so we're quicker to snap or engage or confront because the tribulation is real and it's there, and it's we'd all like to think that there's a rainbow and a silver lining, but the reality is things are going to get worse. 2012 I wish I could look into my crystal ball and say, man, 2012 is going to be this super fantastic year. But, when I look in the crystal ball, everything is just like, man, 2012 is like this time of incredible change and transformation, and something crazy is going to affect everything about how we live. So, we're all reaching the breaking point. And, another kind of symbolism that's out there in the signs is, that something's being born. Part of the transformation is a birth, and we had the signs in the constellation Virgo, and everybody looks at all the earthquakes and volcanoes and they say, man, the earth's going through birthing pains, and that may well be the truth. But the breaking point, that's part of the birthing process too, because right before whatever it is, the baby that is being born, or whatever it is that might be being born in 2012, the water breaks, and that's the signal that it's coming. So, I think, what is the water breaking? Well, it could be a big, huge earthquake or a volcano or extreme earth, but it could just be us as people in society, humans, reaching the breaking point, because we're already pushed to the edge, the precipice. And what happens when the breaking point is reached? Well, unfortunately, usually not good stuff. And, so that kind of comes back to this morning, out on my dog walk. Basically, as a dog owner, I've talked about this, that there's an ongoing battle down at the park, because you're down there and there's creepy people down there. But even as a dog owner, my dogs scare people, and people want you to pick up your dog crap, which guess what, I do. And I dedicated all of 2011 to picking up more dog crap every day. So anyway, I'm down at the park, and there's several people down there with dogs that are taking dumps, and my dogs had already taken dumps, but my one dog, Katie, she took a wee-wee, and, I don't watch my dogs every single second, but to make a long story short, as I walked out of the park, I'd walked about halfway down the block, and I was out of the park, and a city worker who was in the park drove up on me, two of them, and they basically said, hey man, your dog took a dump, you need to go back and pick it up. And, I told him, I said, hey, I watched my dog. She took a wee-wee, but she didn't take a dump. And he's like, no, she did. And, it was a confrontation, and it kind of irked me, because I know that I pick up my dog's doo-doo. But anyway, I told the dude, I said, you know what, I will go back and I will look for my dog poop, and I will pick it up. So then he drove off to the next park, and I went back and looked for that dog poop. And you know what, I looked all over, and I couldn't find it. So as far as I'm concerned, that dog poop didn't happen. So then I ended up walking down to the next park where he was. And he's like, did you pick it up? And I was like, no, I couldn't find it. But I went back and looked for it, so I don't think it happened. When I looked at my dog, I thought she was taking a wee-wee and she wasn't taking a dump. And he was like, no, I saw her taking a dump. And then he kind of murmurs to me, he goes, I'll go back and pick up. And I just said, well, good for you. I go, you know what, it's as much your job to go pick up that dump as it is mine. And then he was like, no, it's not my job. And I'm just laughing, because I'm like, what a hypocrite. It's not his job to pick up the dog crap, but it's his job to leave the park and approach me as a citizen and tell me to go back and pick it up. And I guarantee you, that's not in his job description. And of course, what he did is he pointed to the sign in the park. There's a big sign that has all the stuff that you can or cannot do in a park. And it says, as a dog owner, you got to have your dog on a leash, and you got to pick up its poop. And you know what? Sometimes I have my dog on a leash. I pretty much always pick up my dog's poop when I can. But I looked at the dude who was pointing at the sign, and I said, I don't care about your sign. And that sent him into a tizzy. Because as a city worker, that sign meant everything to him. Signs everywhere, signs. Screwing up the scenery, messing with my mind. But, signs are relative, man. Because it's just society trying to tell us what to do. And like I said, I do put my dogs on a leash sometimes I don't. Because, you know what, it's kind of natural. It's God's way for a dog to just run free at a park in the grass. And I'm going to tell you, that's part of the tribulation, is because as a society, if we constantly put rules and signs in place that every time somebody does something wrong, it affects everybody else, because somebody can't control themselves and they eat too much ice cream, oh, now nobody can eat some ice cream. That's how signs and laws and rules work. And then one day we wake up and we find out that you can't do anything, and it's all for your own good and your own safety. And you know, we're no longer living. We're living in a totalitarian system where the government has a big sign that says, hey, don't do this, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And you know what? That's not how I want to live, because that's taking the living out of living. But that being said, you know what? There are kind of like laws and rules, and there's a moral bar, a compass, you know, that we as a society and that we as individuals have. You know, like, hey, you can't go around murdering people, you can't go around robbing people. So, you know, we have laws in place, you know, to persecute people who do that. And you know what? We have signs at parks, which if somebody has somebody off their dog off their leash, or they don't pick up their dog's poop, you know, a cop or somebody could write him a ticket and make him pay $300. But that's the kind of law which is like, who cares? Because, you know, as a society, we got guys, CEOs of corporations, who are literally stealing from their own companies, and they don't care about all the people who invested their time and their trust working, you know, as employees for this guy, where they put their whole economic future and security in this guy's hands, and yet he's ripping off his company because it's his company and he feels he has every right to take all the money from his company. But you know what? There's no laws on the book. There's no sign at the park that says arrest the CEO for stealing all the money from his own company. So as a society, there's corruption and there's stuff going on, big things, where there's no sign and no enforcement. There's no dude in the park saying, hey man, go back and pick up your dump. So that's why guys like me kind of start reaching our breaking point, because, you know, they're more than happy to come over and say, pick up the dog do, because that's easy to enforce, and you know what, in the big picture in life, it doesn't mean a damn thing. But that's tribulation, front and center, you know, because I wasn't happy, and I'll end the story because the guy basically said, I'm calling the cops, I'm calling my boss, and I said, you call whoever you want, but I walked away, I got out of there. But that was my tribulation, where I was trying to have a peaceful walk and enjoy Mother Nature, and the day, tribulation, boom, right in my face. But that's what's happening to all of us out there, you know, as society, as we reach the breaking point, is how are we going to confront the tribulation? Successfully or unsuccessfully? To be quite honest with you, I was probably borderline. And if I'd been dumb and stuck around at the park until the cops showed up, I'd probably be in jail right now, not even doing this video blog. But anyway, I'm going to go get my tribulation on. Try and do something positive. This week, watch out. It's going to be crazy. All right. Keep on rocking.